two things are indistinguishable. So if we look at the life of the Lord Buddha himself, the Lord Buddha became enlightened. He realized the Dhamma with wisdom. But after the Buddha's enlightenment, after he had rested and enjoyed bliss of Nibbana, his mind turned to sharing his understanding with other human beings. In the story, we know the Brahma god Sahampati comes down to speak with the Buddha, and reassures him human beings that have the capacity to be able of the teaching. So whether it was the Brahma God or whether this we're just talking about some process within the Buddha's own heart and mind, we don't have to decide really. But the important point, I think, is that following on from wisdom, the natural expression is loving kindness and compassion. And so the Buddha set off from Bodh Gaya and walked to Sarnath, to the deer park in Sarnath. And in teaching the 5 disciples, then the Buddha used his wisdom. So to transmit the teachings in such a way that the people who listened to the talk could understand it profoundly and could realize the Dhamma as a consequence. So this is a very short example of the relationship between wisdom and compassion. Wisdom leading to enlightenment, compassion wishing to help other beings to be similarly free of dukkha, and then wisdom in the use of skillful means in order to share the Dhamma. Excuse me. So now to speak more specifically about that relationship, we talk about wisdom as the understanding of the penetration of the 3 characteristics, and you have referred specifically to anatta, or not self. Then we can observe, I think, can we not, that the obstruction to loving kindness is very much based upon our attachment to the 5 khandhas and our belief that rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, vijnana, are me, are mine, belong to me, are who we really are, and so on. And because we have this conditioned worry and concern and obsession with this imagined self that we create through our ignorance, that prevents the pure love and kindness for others. But to the extent to which we penetrate the truth of anatta and we let go of attachment to our own self and our desires and our fears and concerns and our pride and so on, the more profound the insight into anatta comes, the more that we release and have access to a true, pure, loving kindness. So from my point of view, anatta and metta are 2 different sides of the same process. That the more we do the wisdom practice and insight into the 3 characteristics, specific or particularly anatta, the more the love and the compassion for sentient beings arises in our hearts. And we have as a model of this dynamic, of this process, the Lord Buddha himself.
Yes, sir. Next questions.
There are some question in the chat box, Ajahn. Would you love to read from the chat box, please?
How do I? Oh, okay, sorry, I'm not very. Let me see. Chat box. Okay. Venerable Guninda asks, how important is it to study meditation theory before retreat practice? It really depends, I think, on what the theory is. So there are a lot of different theories. I think that, of course, in our overall training and development as monastics, then we have to follow this structure of pariyatti, patipatti, pativeta. So we should be interested in the pariyatti Dhamma, but within the context of that structure. In other words, how much pariyatti do we need? Of course, we need a foundation to protect us from micchaditthi, from wrong view, and to give us a certain kind of map for our journey. But the criteria, how we make a decision, how much study is to the degree to which it helps our practice. If we study the theory to the level that it's an obstacle to meditation, then of course we need to reduce that. I think that we can also distinguish, in my own view here, we can distinguish between the teaching in the sutta and the commentarial teaching, or the Abhidhamma teaching. And the I think that for meditators, the sutta teachings themselves are sufficient, and that the some of the commentarial and Abhidhamma approach is an obstacle for some monks, or for some, so not a sure thing. Again, it's very much, I think, dependent on the personality of the individual. Some and it agitates their mind, and then when they're meditating, they're concerned, oh, is this that, is that this, and trying to find some connection between their experience and their reading. And this will definitely be a hindrance to meditation. But having an overall of the goal, and the say one area of pariyatti Dhamma which definitely useful is studying the 5 hindrances and their nature and function and how to deal with them. This kind of information, practical information, is very good. But when it becomes a bit too much technique oriented, and then I'm not sure. And some people, again, can read the theory and not affected. So there's not an answer to this. But what I would suggest is that you carefully observe your own mind. And if the reading and the theory is starting to affect the meditation, whether it can be in the motivation to meditate or in understanding the experience in meditation, then I would say to do a little bit less. Yeah, of course, there are many different meditation techniques these days. And I'm not going to of anyone who says only I am right, everyone else is wrong. Only my technique works, everyone else's technique is wrong. Only I am samaditi, everyone else is micchaditi. So those are the kinds of attitudes to be very wary of and to not to attach to. So I'll go into the next question in the chat box, and that is from Venerable Dalna, I think. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing your this for. Well, the Buddha famously said that he has no closed hand in teaching, which is to say that he didn't have some special teaching for monks or lay and secret teaching only for monastics, and then other more superficial teachings for lay people. There's just one eightfold path. There's just one threefold training. There's not one for monks and one for lay people. The difference, I think, essentially is that the path to liberation is a very long, difficult one for most people. This has a huge impact. And so the Buddha created a way of life, an institution, specifically for people who compromise. This is, of course, the Sangha. So as monks, we are living in a way all devised by a fully enlightened Buddha to be most helpful in abandoning the unwholesome, developing the wholesome, and purifying the mind. The difference with lay people is that their environment is not one which has been designed by a Buddha. It's one in which there are as many obstacles and hindrances in their surroundings as there are supportive factors. So lay people are practicing the same eightfold path, but they have much more obstructive conditions to deal with. I think that's the first point. The second point is it really depends on the individual, that it's in the Sangha these days, you know, how out of all of the Sangha that, you know, in Thailand, what was 300,000 monastics, how many of those 300,000 monastics are actually practicing to end desire? How many in the Sanghas of Sri Lanka and Myanmar and Cambodia and Laos and Bangladesh, for instance. So I think even in the Sangha itself, which was established specifically for people who want to realize liberation, then there's only a certain percentage of monastics who take advantage of those conditions. In lay life, although there are many obstructions and difficulties just inherent in lay life, but there are some lay people who are very dedicated to practice and find a way of living in the world which is most supportive to the practice of Dhamma. So they have the we call the Kihi Vinaya, the lay Vinaya. They find a way of life which is peaceful and wholesome with right people. Buddhist Buddha. So finally, I'd like to just address this point of desire, because the Pali formulation is so in motivation. In Buddha Dhamma, we talk about two kinds of motivation. So we can say we can refer to these as wholesome motivation and unwholesome motivation, or wholesome desire and unwholesome desire. So we know, or craving, but the wholesome desire, sometimes called Dhammachanda, Kusala Dhammachanda, and sometimes simply as Chanda, this wholesome desire is not to be abandoned. I would refer you to the four Iddhipadas, the four roads to success, and Chanda is the first fundamental factor leading to success in any endeavor. And in every meditation session, it's important to just check on your motivation, because only when you have that interest and enthusiasm and commitment to your meditation practice will the meditation go well. If you lack that initial wholesome desire or chanda, then it's very easy to get caught up in hindrances. So the wholesome desire, or chanda or dhammachanda, towards the ending of suffering, it's not something to be abandoned. It's something to be cultivated. The kind of desire which should be abandoned, and which is the cause of dukkha, is tanha. Kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. So the abandoning or getting rid of desire, it's distinguished which is in my tradition, will emphasize to lay people that the Buddha made clear that living with 5 precepts, maintaining good practice of right livelihood, of being kind and generous and moral, developing, cultivating hiri-ottappa and so on, that is a sufficient basis for stream entry, and that for lay Buddhists, stream entry is a good goal. But for those many lay Buddhists who are not yet inspired to practice, then support them and encouraging people to find their way upwards and towards bhavana. So we have these 3 aspects, 3 dimensions of dana, sila, bhavana, and for many lay Buddhists, perhaps their emphasis is primarily on dana, and it's the responsibility of the monastic to inspire them to keep priests and to use the teachings on sila to develop themselves, and finally to develop in bhavana. So there's not different goals. Is the same goal, but how far one will go along that path will depend on many different conditions, one's own right view, one's own commitment and interest, and so on and so forth. Okay. Have laywomen, again, you must forgive me about the pronunciation of names. Homi or Homi asks, how does meditation help prepare for sickness and death? Well, again, there's not just a thing called meditation. It depends a lot on what kind of meditation and to what degree meditation is founded in a life of dana and sila. Say specifically that meditation enables us to look closely, directly at the nature of body and mind. And being as a human being is pain. And in meditation, we are able to look at pain directly, but it's in meditation, it's a special kind of pain, you can say, in that if we are sitting for a certain period of time and develop some pain in our back or our knees, and we make the choice not to move, not to change posture, but to look at that pain, then we know also that it's within our power to stop whenever we want. We can just change our posture or end the meditation. So it's an ability, it gives us the opportunity to look at pain in a way that we can stop looking if we so wish, which is different from, of course, from if we have some sickness. So looking at pain in meditation, this is a kind of meditation. It's not one, if you don't have very good samadhi, it's not one to do too often because it's hard work and it can be discouraging. But if the mindfulness is strong, we can begin to separate physical pain from the mental reaction to pain. And what we often call physical pain is not just the physical phenomena. It's the physical phenomena together with the reaction to it. So the reaction to it are primarily expressions of vipavadanha, and they can take the form of fear, anxiety, anger, stress, so many different negative emotional reactions that arise so quickly and so fluently when we experience pain that it's normal and natural to overall experience as just one thing called pain. But in meditation practice, when we start to develop stronger mindfulness, then we can recognize that when the mind is strong and clear and bright and doesn't attach to physical pain, we can see that pain is one thing and suffering is another thing. And the suffering is something we add on to the pain through our habits and through our attachments and through our lack of understanding of the way our mind works, a lack of training of the mind. So if we can develop that ability to let go of the habitual mental reaction to physical pain, then this is very liberating. It can give rise to great joy, and it's a wonderful experience. And seeing how by letting go of that negative reaction, so much of the suffering disappears, then this changes our whole relationship to physical pain. We don't have to fear pain, fear illness in the same way, because we know how to look after our mind. So for this reason, a lot of fear of sickness and fear of death is eliminated or becomes much weaker. The nature of physical pain in the present moment and how we can reduce it by recognizing the unnecessary addition of mental reaction, which through mindfulness and wisdom we can prevent. The other another point here is that meditation practice is part of the overall training that we undertake, means that we are observing continually throughout the day the relationship between body and mind, the nature of the body, the nature, how we see the natural processes of the body and mind as normal and natural. Thai we say tamada, it's just normal. It's just the way things are. It's like this. One of my teachers from Ajahn Sumedho would say, it's like this. It's just like this. So when you're not looking at aging and death as enemies, but just natural processes, things that happen to everyone, then your eyes are opened. You see, yeah, the body's getting older, and death lies ahead, but the fear and the aversion and so on starts to fall away, and you say, yeah, it's normal, it's natural. So that sense of sickness and death and normal and natural, it's not like a belief or something you can just persuade yourself or try to have some kind of positive thinking about it. But this is an attitude that arises naturally from keep coming back again and again to, oh, this is the body. It's like this. It changes like this. It's getting older like this. And this is death. And when we separate and really intimidating truths can be dealt with simply by coming back to them again and again and again. There's nothing wrong with old age. It's not unnatural. It's the opposite. It's completely natural. Happened to every single living being that's ever lived in any realm. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to me. It's happening as time goes on. And you observe as you get older, this aches and pains that weren't there before, and you get sick more easily, or you don't get well so easily. And yeah, this is what it's like. This is old age. This is sickness. This is death. It's like this. It's normal. It's natural. And so you can be at peace with it, just recognizing it's a natural process. But as I said, that when we resist natural processes, when we fight with nature, we can never win that fight. And and we cause ourselves a lot of unnecessary stress. So, I mean, we observe in newspapers, obituaries about people who say, oh, against cancer, as though cancer was some kind of external enemy. And this is part of and you can't ever win the battle against death. I mean, even if you have the best treatments, most expensive drugs, and you can bring cancer into remission, but you haven't you haven't overcome death. It's just maybe you put it back for a few months or a few years, but long-term view, we're going to get old, going to get sick, die. Back to that. Excuse me. So I have a question from Venerable Nanda Thakura. If we practice meditation continually for 1 year, what can we expect to happen to us? Well, I think you die because you wouldn't have time to eat anything or get any sleep. So, I don't think you can just meditate all the time. I would like to, so I'm joking. I would like to expand the, from meditation to bhavana. Of course, you're probably familiar with the fact that there's not really a word in the Pali language that is an exact equivalent of this word meditation that we use so much these days. And I think that the emphasis on the word meditation can be too narrow. If we look at the cultivation, then it's a matter of the threefold training of sila, samadhi, and panya, and it's something to be applied in every posture. Not, if we think that Dhamma practice is only really going on when we are sitting cross-legged or walking up and down, and then everything else is just get back to real practice and how many hours and hundreds of hours. And I don't see it like that. So I prefer to look at cultivation in the in the sense that the Buddha line in the Sutta and the material world we live in, a wise relationship with the social world, the people around us. It's the cultivation of the heart and the cultivation of, and in particular, I think that the four right efforts provides a very good structure for practice. And you have to excuse me. I had COVID last month, and I'm much better now, but I've still got a bit of a cough, so excuse me for that. So the four right efforts of preventing, learning to look after your mind in such a way that as yet unarisen unwholesome dhammas cannot arise. And then on the occasions where you're unsuccessful with that first kind of effort, then making the effort to abandon unwholesome dhammas that have already arisen in your mind. Thirdly, making the effort to introduce into the mind wholesome dhammas which are not yet present. And fourthly, cultivating, taking care of, and bringing to maturity those wholesome dhammas that are already present. So, as a monk, you might, apart from times of retreat, when you are sitting and walking many hours a day, there are periods where you are in your normal monastic life, going on alms round or performing duties in the monastery of various kinds. And so if we think, so busy these days, not any time to meditate, not any time to really practice, then that's very frustrating, isn't it? Whereas I think that if you're looking at it in terms of the four right efforts, then whether you're on Bindabat, you're working, you're talking with people, you're helping the monastery with whatever, you can feel you are practicing at least one of these four right efforts. And whenever you're putting forth one of these kinds of right effort, then you're practicing and you're growing in the Dhamma, and these will strengthen those periods of formal meditation. So meditation say quantifiable. That's to say, we can't look at it in the same way as they say digging a hole. I don't know, that's a good analogy, but you dig a hole, you can say, well, observing the how deep you can dig a hole in an hour, we can say, well, in 2 hours you would dig twice as much, and 10 hours 10 times as much. So, digging a hole or walking a path, probably a better analogy. If you can recognize your average speed, and then you can extrapolate from that and say, well, one day you walk this many kilos, so 1 year you would walk that many kilos. But meditation is not like that for many reasons. One of the reasons is that all of us have lived so many lives in the past, And we are born into this world with an inheritance of old karma, because it's very difficult to be born as a human being, and to be born as a human being in a Buddhist country and in an environment in which you're able to practice the Dhamma and to live as a monastic. Then you know, we can say we've all accumulated a huge amount of good karma. But we also have accumulated obstructive dhammas, and it's not a sure thing when those the bad karma, if we use that term, that we've created in the past will manifest in our life. So let's do practicing not just 1 year, for many years. There might be they might both put forward the same kind of effort, be very diligent, very devoted, and skilled in meditation. But one monk will just feel really motivated, and his health is good, and just generally the hindrances are weak, and it's not difficult, it's easy even. Whereas another monk, same kind of sattha and viriya, and really trying very hard, but so many different obstacles, whether it's of health or hindrances, and so much stuff to work through. So this is one of the reasons why we can't say, if you do 1 year of meditation, you will have this result, necessarily, because we don't know the kinds of obstacles that we will have to face as a result of past karma. And of course, we cannot say what the conditions will be right now, independently of our own history. So say, you know, there's a drought, or famine, or a viral infection, and so the thing in this, the situation around us, and our lay support, the support with the 4 requisites, is not as stable as we might think. So there's really no way to say 1 year of practice of meditation then will have this result. Again, some people meditate with micchaditthi, with wrong views, and the more they meditate, then the further they go from nibbana. And others with right view then will be much go much, and which would prevent us from you, and that you are practicing in the correct way laid down by the Lord Buddha. Then the more the better. So,
And
it's okay.
another question. So when we practice meditations, especially like this program, we have practiced for almost 10 days. So how can practitioners know their progress by themselves?
Well, 10 days is, you know, it's a relatively short time also. And for some of you, perhaps there have been some special uplifting experiences, and things that have changed your life. This is a lifetime practice. It's not a 100-meter sprint. Like 10 days is like 100 meters. It's whole of one's life, and so learning from the experience. But I think that can say that meditation is a little bit like learning a language, in that it's very difficult beginning to progress with a language, hard work, but it's very easy to lose the progress afterwards. So the gains that you've made and to in the first place, and with meditation practice for 10 days, it's a wonderful opportunity to just give everything to that kind of cultivation without any other concerns. But it's an artificial environment, and sooner or later you have to emerge from that. And the challenge is to be able to sustain it and to not allow it to decline. And so this is something well worth considering and talking about. I mean, these days we have the social media. Almost everyone has telephones these days, and of course they are a major hindrance and distraction for most people. So that's just one point to at the end of a retreat, to assess your relationship to your telephone, and in terms of how long you spend on it, what you do on it, and so on, and to what extent that is in harmony with and leading to growth in Dhamma. But there are also very good and beneficial aspects of telephones and social media, and more lay groups these days are lay people are forming into practice together on Zoom, or join in with the Zoom sessions from monasteries and retreats around the world. And so this is something I suggest you might consider making a group, and all of you who have participated today, making a group and then meeting together online and meditating together, or sharing experiences and giving support to each other, because in a very supportive environment, as you are experiencing now, then it's kind of easy in a way to get up early in the morning and to do the practice, because that's the set routine, and you sign back in your own monastery or in a place where there isn't that same kind of support. The question is that how do you sustain your motivation and your practice? And sometimes our own gamlang jai is not, our own kind of inspiration is not yet totally reliable. And so using the modern technology, rather than using it in a way that takes you away from the Dhamma, but using it in a way that is strengthening you in the Dhamma.
Okay, so we have the last question, I think. Okay, Venerable, please.
May I ask question, please, Jan?
Please.
What I would like to know is, I would like to know a person who does not believe in the tradition is taking meditation, trying hard, can he or she attain the higher level? Because mentioned in Bhattana, Saddha Upanishaya, Dana, Didi, Sila, Samadhi, etc. So I ask this question. So that is very important for Buddhism and for practitioner, I think. So I ask this question. Please answer me, Ajahn.
Yeah, I'm not sure I completely understood. My on path without taking refuge in the triple gem. Is that correct?
No. I don't. I don't. I didn't mean like this. I mean,
Sorry.
Trapezian. He has no space in Trapezian.
Yeah.
Is taking meditation, try hard. Can he or she attain the higher level of Dhamma?
Well, again, this is a question of language as well. And so the word meditation, as I say, is not originally a word found in Pali. And people talk about meditation and mean very many different things by this word. And so what many people call meditation, what we in Buddhist tradition would not necessarily recognize as being part of the path to Nibbana. So the Buddha was asked this kind of question himself. Is there any enlightenment outside of the Dhamma Vinaya? And the Buddha said, wherever someone practices every element of the Eightfold Path, then enlightenment is possible. Without it, not. And for people who lack right view and lack understanding of the Buddha's teaching, then they can use meditation technique and become and specific wisdom, guiding wisdom embodied in the Triple Gem and in the Buddha's teaching, that there will be no liberation in the Buddha sense, no Nibbana. But certainly people can realize very profound states of calm. But Samma Samadhi in Buddha Dhamma is the samadhi that leads to wisdom, leads to yatha putayana dasana, leads to nibbida, leads to abandonment, and so on. So this process leading to liberation is founded upon sammatiti, right view, and the Buddha's understanding of the way things are. So we say there's definitely so many advantages and benefits from people practicing meditation techniques, whatever their beliefs, from people who believe in God and believe in heaven and hell, eternal heaven and hell, rather than the Buddha's understanding of those terms, or even materialists who believe that after they die, then there's nothing following that. These kinds of these are not obstacles to developing a peaceful mind necessarily, but they are obstacles to realization of stream entry and leading to Nibbana.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay, so I have another engagement now, so I would like to express my appreciation of your commitment and your efforts and the Buddhist world. I was born in England, although I now have Thai nationality, and I'm very proud of that. But I was never interested in being a bhikkhu in Western country or into propagating Dhamma in the West, because to me, the future of Theravada Buddhism is in Southeast Asia primarily. Buddhism will survive and flourish according to how we practice and propagate the Dhamma in the countries of Sri Lanka and Thailand and Burma, Myanmar and Laos and Cambodia and so on. And this is the heartland of the Buddha Dhamma. And we deeply need monks who are strong in Pariyatti and Patipatti and Pativedta. We need monks who are good examples and leaders of Buddhist communities and able to experience the true profundity of the Buddha's teaching and be able to share that with others. So it's a wonderful opportunity to help our countries and the Buddhist population to deal with all the challenges of the 21st century and allowing the Buddha Dhamma to be right at the very heart and the root of our cultures. And there's a great deal of worrying evidence that people are falling away from Buddhism, particularly younger generations. And it's up to us to really do this hard work of studying and practicing and being able to lead our communities and to make sure that Buddhism that we love and cherish so much can flourish in the future. So I would like to accept your hard work and your commitment and wish you all the best in your practice. May the virtues of the Triple Gem guide and protect you all to grow in Sila and Samadhi and Panya.
Sadhu. On behalf of IBSC MCU, we really appreciate for your kindness. That's a wonderful Dhamma sharing from you. So please everyone, pay respect to most venerable Pra Tham Pra Thamma Pacharayana Muni or Pra Ajahn Jayasaro together. Anjali 1